Hi, this is Nuria slash Selpide, speaking from El Castillo de la Duquesa, which is a small, tiny village in the south of Spain, in Malaga. Right now, I'm at an also small balcony right next to the sea, which is the reason why you're probably hearing some very nasty wind, and if you're a little bit more lucky, the waves in the distance coming back and forth. This place is not my home. Weird enough, it feels more like home than many of the places I've actually lived in. But it isn't, it is just a house that I rent with my parents from time to time to spend our vacations in, not home. I haven't been able to feel like home ever since I moved for the first time. I had to leave the house where I grew up, and since we couldn't find a buyer, my parents decided to rent it. We had a new tenant every school year. Our flat was literally next to a high school, so it was perfect for young teachers who were destined there for their first year. I guess it might be a coping mechanism of some sort. After the safest place you've got is taken away from you and transformed into a generic space for people to build their temporary houses, a space that has no soul, speaking in the dramatic and fatalist tone I would have used during those teenage days. What is there for your brain to do other than protect itself? If a shelter can disappear at any moment, it is no longer a safe place. Don't feel comfortable, don't relax. Learn from the past. Settle down in tension, because life may steal your environment and leave you stranded. I have lived in 4 different houses ever since, and only in the last one I have started to build something like a pillow fort. Depending on the perspective, it could end up looking like a home, but it isn't steady enough to be sure just yet. I felt it would be meaningful to start everything here in this home that isn't quite so, and also to say goodbye at the same time, because in 3 days I am moving to Seoul, South Korea. During most of the year I lived in Madrid, which is almost 10,000 kilometers away from South Korea, and I can't help but wonder whether I'll be able to find a place to call home there. I've always been curious about this. When I was a child, I became extremely anxious whenever I had to leave my family for a long time. I even had to get picked from a summer camp because it was causing me physical pain to think that something awful could happen to my parents or my cat, and I wouldn't be able to say goodbye to them. I thought I missed them. Then I realized I actually missed the feeling I had when I was with them. I missed knowing that I was safe, that there was nothing to worry about because they could handle it. I missed home. But what was home exactly? A blur of comfortable feelings? My family? The 8th-floor balcony where I gazed at the stars when I was a kid? A couple of days ago, I told my parents about this project, and without intending to make a debate, they ended up trying to answer to this too. My dad has had to move a lot because of his several jobs. Also, he had tons of siblings. He still does have them. It's 8 of them. So, when they were kids, their house didn't feel as much as a home as it did feel like a pension. My dad also happens to be the only one who works in my family, so he's the one who provides. And because of that, whenever he feels like the minimum requirements for your well-being are okay, it's easier to make emotional connections. I mean, he does feel like home is a place. For him, it is a place. And my mom, on the other hand, she lost her own mom when she was 11. And starting from there, she had to live first with her aunts, then with her grandma, then with her dad and his new wife, then on a flat with other students when she was studying college. She didn't feel quite at home until she bought her first house with my dad. This house was objectively way worse in quality than any other house we've ever had. But everything it implied, the memories she made there, and she told me also the fact that her daughter, her only daughter, which is me, hi, was born there. I mean, for her, experiences make you feel like home. The place is just secondary. Home is a feeling. These two opinions make complete sense. I mean, as of today, I still haven't figured out. And when I decided to be part of an exchange program only for 4 months in South Korea, I thought maybe that was the perfect place and time to start an investigation, kind of, on something that has kept me long nights awake. Also, two important things. Sorry for yelling. As you may have noticed by now, because of my awkward pronunciation, English isn't my mother tongue, so I will be messing up a lot. In fact, I was just about to say sorry me, which is not right at all. I guess it illustrates perfectly what I wanted to say, but still it felt meaningful to talk about homesickness in a language that wasn't mine. And also it made sense for reasons that will be explained in the future. The second thing that I wanted to say is that even if English was my mother language, I would probably still divert. I am not good at speaking at all. I like to plan stuff and have scripts and everything, but I am not going to talk in a scripted way all the time in this podcast. I mean, right now I am not, which is why I'm stumbling with words and tripping and everything. So sorry in advance once again, but I thought it would make more sense if I said things as they came out. After all, I'm talking about something very rooted into our feelings, not so much our brains. But that is getting ahead. I wanted to talk about homesickness and about home itself because I feel we don't talk enough about any of them. The general media, films, TV shows, books, songs, doesn't talk about home and homesickness as much and as deeply as it does about other feelings and ideas that might even be less universal. Love is always present, or the traditional idea of family, chasing dreams, success, failure, heartbreak, identity, redemption, violence. Home is treated as a secondary character in those stories. And even when it is considered important, it tends to be used as a capsule, as an ideal exterior that holds other more important things inside. Love, family, those are the classic ones. And family actually is quite about love. I mean, it is love itself, but that is diverting once again. So let's not lose track. Without giving it a lot of thought, I'm sure we can say that all of us experience homesickness at some point. Either you move from your hometown to a different city, or you go far to study for college, or you get a job that is also far away. These are just the basic examples. And the feeling of longing that comes with homesickness is strong enough to shape a long period of time that was put in a quite messy way. What I meant to say is homesickness can hit as hard as any other extremely important human issue, but it is considered as just complementary, and so it appears in such way in every single type of content that we can look up to. We need to see things in order to understand them, to get why they affect us, and be able to solve them. That's why representation is so important. And representation that has just nostalgia or family included in it isn't the same as an exact representation of what homesick actually implies. As stories that talk about home itself. We need these stories because even if we don't realize it, I think we might spend our whole lives looking for a home, trying to find it. We tend to think of home in the same way the media represents it most of the time. But when we stop and think for a second, actually think about it and try to put it into words, the words that come out are bigger than that. When we imagine ourselves in a perfect future, we picture what we desire: love, beautiful views, nice food, a perfect job, climate change ending because corporations decide to finally do something about it. But, at least in my case, I think I don't really know if I want those things. Except for the climate change one, of course. I want what I think those things will make me feel. Loved, relaxed, happy, safe. I asked some of my closest friends to try and define what home meant for them. I will just read directly what they wrote me and make a little pause in between one definition and the following one. For me, my home is Madrid, the house I've grown up in. For me, home is where you feel you can be yourself without the tension of having to adapt to the environment. Home is, in fact, the environment where you feel 100% like yourself. That's why I think my home is my own house, where I've grown up and where I've got my family, where I've always been myself, unpolished and quiet. It's a mix of comfort zone and growing zone. Yeah, it's the place where you grow. Not growing just as in growing up or growing old, but growing as a person. If the environment where you are growing is favorable, you end up loving the place. The place, but also the people that make me not miss other things. Wherever I feel in peace and happy just to be there. My home has always been my hometown, my house and my friends. But since last year, both my relationships with people from Madrid and my life have settled down more, and I feel like I've got two parallel lives with two parallel homes. I no longer have a unique place that feels superior to the rest, because when I am in my hometown, I miss Madrid, and vice versa. For me, home is where you feel safe and sound, not just physically, but also mentally. It's like a logistic shelter, but also personal. It doesn't need to include your family. In fact, sometimes you don't feel at ease, nor you can rest your mind with your family. For me, home is your place, each person's place, I mean. And I also think you can have several homes. For me, the concept of home, more than the place where I've always lived, is the little things that bring me a feeling of calm and inner peace, an emotional bond with the place I am or the people around me, although sometimes I can feel this when I'm alone. I think home is a place to come back to when you don't want to be anywhere else anymore. I'll explain myself. When you're out there partying or in class or just visiting someone, in a situation like this one's, and suddenly you run out of energy and you don't want to be there anymore. The place you want to come back to in order to recharge your energy so you are fine again is home. When something terrible happens and all you want is for one person to hug you, and you feel that restlessness of until that passes, until I see this person, this isn't going to be okay. I think that is also a part of home. Home is the place I want to come back to when I've had a bad day and need to feel protected. For me, home is the bun you make to lay around your house. A bun as comfortable as not enhancing. A hairstyle I only choose when a person or a place gives me a peace and confidence so big I can stop caring about my hair being messy. A house is four walls and the rooms. A home is four stones and two IKEA bowls. A home is the person you like to lay on the couch with at 8:30 p.m. As you can hear, all of my friends came up with pretty different answers. I mean, they all had things in common, but the basic part of the definitions was pretty different. And still, there was something that connected them all. At least that's what I think after analyzing them. Home is where they feel free, loved, relaxed, happy, safe. That makes me think that what we collectively as human beings associate with the concept of home is all of that. And still, when you ask someone what they're looking for in life, nobody answers home. Home feels important to us, but it isn't portrayed as that important in the stories we're told. I think maybe at this point of history, the feeling of something missing that lots of us have is related to the fact that we've never been taught to actively look for a home, to stop putting it different names or dividing it into smaller categories and then telling ourselves that those things are what we need. And we've never been taught that because nobody really knows what home is. That is what I am trying to figure out, and that is the journey you will be joining if you stay here for the next following months. Maybe home is a place, maybe it is a feeling, maybe it is someone else, or maybe it is nothing at all. You know how turtles and snails carry their own home around? Maybe we should learn to love our bones as well. That way we would find home amongst ourselves. The thing is, I can't figure this out on my own. I haven't lived that much, and I am not that smart. And besides all of that, the whole point of this was to dig on the fact that homesickness is part of the human condition. We all experience the details on a different way, and each parameter affects us distinctly, as we all have listened to a while ago, just this moment. But how come we all feel the same? No matter where we come from, no matter what we've been through, no matter what we dream of, we all know what home should be, even if we're unable to translate it into a language. It seems to be one of those ideas so primitive, so essential. It is not even an idea, but something deeper within our conscience. And we can't refuse it, because there is an evidence. When we miss home, we can't tell that is the problem. In order to feel like something is missing, there must be a something on the first place. Voids, as they usually mean there is a spot where nothing exists, don't always have a name. We have cold, the absence of heat, because we would die if we stayed without it for a long time. We have heartbreak, but it makes sense, as love in its many forms is probably the biggest force that has ever impulsed humankind. Imagine how big this feeling is, this feeling of homesickness, that we've come with a whole individual word to call it properly. And I only know English, which is homesickness, and Spanish, which is morriña, and I think it is Welsh, that has hireth, and I think that's it because I know French, but I know so little French. I shouldn't even have said that because it might be offensive, but it's just wonder-striking, and I am aware that word doesn't exist. But if I keep diverting about this, the first episode will never end, which is a shame, because I am supposed to catch your attention and make you fall in love with this and everything, so please don't mind this, but I just find it mind-blowing. As I was saying, I can't do this on my own, and that's why I won't be alone in the Homesick project anymore. Except for the last episode, I will have guests, a word that seems entirely inappropriate because guests are what you invite to your home, and we don't happen to have one of those just yet. But I will have some wonderful people that will help me try to put into words what home is from different perspectives, both in the way we define it and in the environment these young pips come from. I will explain this properly, and this is one of those parts when I don't have a script, so don't mind me once again. But I will be staying in an international dormitory while I'm in Korea, and I thought it would be even more interesting if the guests, or whichever name I come up with that is better than that, that were invited to the podcast, I think it would be more interesting if they come from different backgrounds and countries and cultures, because it would furthermore prove that homesickness and home are something universal within the human existence or condition. And yes, some wonderful people agreed to help me, so you will be getting to meet them soon, hopefully, in the following episodes, because I haven't said this so far, and now comes all the less philosophical, more practical stuff. But the Homesick project will consist on both a podcast and a virtual zine, or sign, or zine, as I would say in Spanish, because I have just remembered or had the idea that I don't know how to pronounce that, but I am diverting once again, hopefully for the last time. The Homesick project will have 8 episodes. This is the first one, and each of them will have a theme related to home and homesickness. For example, this one was what is home, a more generic introduction, I guess. And when each episode is uploaded to your personal favorite streaming platform, it will also open an issue of a virtual zine that will be based upon that theme that the episode talks about. What will this virtual zine? How will this virtual zine work? Well, I will be opening an email, and also you can tag whatever you feel like uploading with hashtag the homesick zine 1, which is the number of the episode and the theme and the issue of the zine. And I will work as a kind of curator and put them all together. I wanted to create this space for people who feel homesick to feel a bit less lost. And as I said before, I think fiction and art and just creating things and letting them out of yourself is something very helpful to do when you are feeling a bit lost. So I wanted creative people and artists of any kind to submit their poetry, their artwork, their songs, their photography, whatever it is that inspired that the podcast are more than the podcast, the themes of the podcast inspire you to create. And I wanted to build a safe place for all of us to share that. And yeah, as I said before, to feel a bit less lost. It might not be the story we need to hear, the perfectly designed fiction that will mark the generation and guide it towards the future, but it will be made of pieces that may work just as fine to make us see that we're not alone, that home is something real and something difficult to find, and that it's okay to not know where you belong for a while, and it doesn't make you any less worthy. And that, as High School Musical would very correctly say, we're all in this together. Now comes an even more boring thing, I guess, which is to remind everyone who might be listening to this of the social media, of links and everything. I'm really bad at this, but the Homesick Project is called the Homesick Project, just as it sounds, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Tumblr. It only sounds different in Twitter because that little bastard won't allow you to have a name and username as long, so it is just the Homesick Pro, PRO. But I am telling you this in case you are interested in the virtual sim part, in case you want to collaborate or just to see what people submitted. You can look for it in those places. Also, I had my own social media in case for some reason you happen to be interested in myself, and you can find it on the website of the project. So you can look for me there if you want to. And I think that's the last thing I wanted to say. I know this was a bit messy and I messed up a lot. I'm sorry, but I didn't want to edit this at all. I wanted it to be just as it came out. And now I'm just repeating myself. It just feels so calm here. I don't want to leave yet. The waves keep coming back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I can't see them, but I think there's quite a lot of stars in the sky. It is late. It is 2 a.m. There's not a single soul on the streets. And the lamps have this sort of yellowish light that make you feel like you're in a magic setting. You know, like Albus Dumbledore is going to come here and set them off and send us all to a magical journey. The leaves of the palm trees are just crazy with the wind. In 3 days I'll be in a different continent. Even if I don't know what home is, I'm almost sure that's the farthest I've ever been from it. Weird, isn't it? All of this. It feels so surreal. But just a little less heavy when you know someone might be listening on the other side. If you say, next time you hear my voice, I'll be almost 10,000 kilometers far from here. I hope the Homesick Project actually ends up helping someone. I really do. Good night and farewell.